with Jonathan Pearce after yesterday's 2-1 defeat to Bournemouth at the Emirates. Let me just put it into context. Arsenal are 9 points clear of Manchester City at the summit, but City have 2 games in hand. If Pep Guardiola's Man City win today and against Arsenal next weekend, they'll be 3 points behind with a game in hand. Wow. Steph Houghton, you are the only one amongst us to have won a title. Well, you've won a title most recently amongst us. I can't remember the last time I won one. But talk to me about what you're seeing in this title race right now, because the pressure is naturally all on Arsenal. And the day and age we live in right now, with social media and all the noise, it feels like the cracks are starting to appear.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody spoke a lot about the Carabao Cup in terms of Arsenal v Manchester City. Would that have a big impact on the title race? And we were probably split amongst the people that I spoke with. But I was a big believer that City are very, very experienced in these title races, whether they've come from behind from a number of years, but also the players that have already lifted trophies. But I think from Arsenal's point of view, I think for me yesterday especially, they diverted away from what they have done all season from a playing point of view. I think you can't use the Champions League in midweek as an excuse. I don't think it was fatigue. I don't think it was tiredness. I think you see players that have had an unbelievable season, the likes of Raya, the likes of Gabriel, making mistakes. And I think that's partly down to Bournemouth, but also you could feel there's a little bit of nervousness. And I think if you're an Arsenal fan or you're connected to the club, you would be worried, because it's kind of like, is this going to happen again? But I think Arsenal have got great players. They've got a way of playing that they need to stick to. And when you're in a title race, you really need to stick to them principles. And I think yesterday was the first time I really seen Arsenal kind of deviate away from what they've done so well for the majority of this season.
It feels like that's the most common denominator. Danny Murphy on Match of the Day last night said it wasn't tiredness, it was nervousness. Alan Shearer said Arsenal looked weak, vulnerable and very, very nervous. Is it as simple as that, Clinton Morrison?
Yeah, they're nervous. I think they're nervous. I don't think they're playing anywhere near they were at the start of the season, even though people said they weren't playing well. I always think the handbrakes are on with Arsenal. And Man City at the moment, I think the Carabao Cup was massive. I said it all along, but I said that whoever won that would go on and win the Premier League. That was before City had a couple of them draws where they were disappointing. But I believe now Man City have it in them to go and win every single game from now to the end of the season and put huge pressure on Arsenal. I watched the game, I covered it yesterday against Bournemouth. Bournemouth thoroughly deserved it. What Bournemouth did, Areola's team, he just went and pressed Arsenal. And he had David Raya in the second half putting his foot on the ball for ages. The Arsenal fans were moaning like hell, to be fair. So it was really disappointing. I just look at it, the tempo they play is slow, there's no pace in the team. Bournemouth thoroughly deserve it. They didn't go to the Emirates and it was a smash and grab. Arsenal under immense pressure. Even in the midweek ads against Sporting Lisbon. Sporting Lisbon were the better team. The reason Arsenal won the game is because David Raya was outstanding. So there's big pressure on Arsenal. And will it happen again? That is what everyone's saying. They've been in this situation many times. But the thing is Man City are chasing. And what Man City have, a lot of people say, they don't have the players and the experience. What they do have is one of the best managers that's been there, has seen it and done it. And Pep will love this situation at the moment.
Julian Laurent, come on, your opening gambit. Let's have it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything the guys just said. I think probably the worst team outside of City that Arsenal could have played yesterday was Bournemouth. A Bournemouth team that, as you know, is probably the best pressing team in the league, or if not the best, in the top 3 easily. That they don't really have anything to play for. They have a slim chance to maybe get to the Conference League, but really, they would have gone there yesterday at the Emirates, sunny day, just to enjoy themselves. And for them, obviously, in terms of tiredness, I also agree with the guys to some extent, because I think Arsenal, you look at Zubimendi, he's played a lot of football, and yesterday he looked leggy. But Bournemouth didn't have anything in midweek. Bournemouth didn't play for 21 days. Like a lot of the teams in the Premier League, because of the international break, because of the FA Cup weekend and the break that some teams had. That's a long time to get ready. Not many of the players either were away on international duties. So maybe that played a part, but Bournemouth are great. They create chaos everywhere they go, and they actually cause Arsenal problems every single time because of the way they press, because of the way they run, because of that directness that they have every time they recover the ball. And I really thought before the game, this is the worst fixture really for Arsenal right now, considering that what happened before the Carabao Cup final loss, the Southampton loss, that tricky game away at Sporting. to have Bournemouth come in at 12:30 on a Saturday was going to be very difficult, and it was probably harder than I thought, because I agree Arsenal were very disappointing on the day.
Steph, just on what Julian said there about, Bournemouth having 22 days ahead of the fixture to prepare. Yes, Arsenal are involved in multiple cup competitions. They were involved in multiple cup competitions, obviously being beaten in that final by Manchester City, being knocked out of the FA Cup by Southampton, and playing in Europe this week as well. Surely it's a privilege to play in those competitions and to be involved at the business end of the season in multiple competitions and having, that tiredness and sort of living on the edge, living on the momentum and the buzz of it, the thrill of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think I've experienced that for a few seasons in my career, and I think it's something that you really enjoy as a player. I think you do like training, but I think there's nothing better than matches, and in terms of what Arsenal's schedule has been, and you look at what City have done over the last few years in terms of what they've achieved, it's because they've been able to cope with that schedule. And when these moments come, when you've played away Champions League, you're in the latter stages, you've got to go and perform, you've got to go and get them 3 points against Bournemouth on the Saturday at lunchtime, and you've just got to find a way. And I think as players, it's the most exciting part of your career in terms of just that momentum, that kind of rhythm of playing and getting used to these big games. And like what you said, these are the best parts of the season. This is where you go from March to May, and you've just got to give it everything. And I think Arsenal, look, I'm a big fan of Arsenal in terms of what they've done, what Arteta's done to this side, and the squad that they've built. But yesterday, I think you see them rotations, and unfortunately, them players didn't step up to it, and there was no one that really got a hold of the game and tried to change things against Bournemouth. Bournemouth had quite a lot of control throughout the whole game and always posed a threat, and that's something that we don't really see against Arsenal.
But Steph, just looking at the rotations and the options that, Mikel Arteta brought in, these are players that have been acquired for vast sums of money. They've built a squad for a reason, no?
Without a doubt. And I think, if you said to me, I think we've been speaking about Arsenal over the last few years and how Arteta is going to build and what is it going to take to get to that Premier League title. And we've said about squad depth, and they've brought in the likes of Gyökeres. I thought, considering Arsenal didn't have the best of games, I thought he was still a bit of a handful for Bournemouth yesterday. But you look at Madueke, you look at Martinelli, did they really affect Bournemouth the way that they really should have, and all the talent that they've had? Probably not. Did they really mix up the game as much as what they had against Bournemouth, who were very, very aggressive? They were very front-footed. There was a lot of space left in behind that back four. Did they really stretch the back four enough? Probably not. And I think that's what wins you championships, is that ability to kind of adapt in the moment. And even though you have a game plan as a player, I'm sure Clinton can back us up, in the moment you feel it as a player, and sometimes you've got to take that initiative. And I don't think anyone from Arsenal really tried to change from the first half to the second half to go and get them 3 points.
This thing about the Carabao Cup, we mentioned psychologically the impact of a defeat and the way the defeat happened, sure. But there's also what City did as a setup against Arsenal, in terms especially of pressing, not going too high, but having that line of four. Remember, that kind of like a fence in front, and Arsenal and Kepa not finding any solutions of where the ball could go. And a bit to what you just said, Steph, as well about yesterday. And surely that, and the Kai Havertz situation is very similar, because he started in the final. He started yesterday in positions that are not really his, or certainly haven't been for a very long time. And he looked again a little bit out of, where am I supposed to go? Where am I another number 9 with Gyökeres? Am I a number 10 here? Do I play more central? Do I play a bit more on the right, like Odegaard in the usual 4-3-3 that we've been used for so many years? And I think it was a situation where even on the pitch, those players were like, okay, we need to sort this out. But Bournemouth don't let you anywhere. Maybe another team would have been a bit more passive. Okay, and then you can set up maybe and take a bit of time to get into the game. Not with Bournemouth. So that's the thing where we've always said, as long as you learn from what you did before to go again, because Arteta said yesterday, it's how we stand up now for ourselves and how we fight back and how we go again. Great, but you also have to show that you learn from what happened before to make you better. And on Wednesday, against Sporting at home, make sure that you qualify for the semi-final. And then more importantly, next Sunday at the Etihad, show that if City do the same thing again, then in the final, you're ready for it and you've got a plan against it.
Clinton?
I agree with everything what everyone said, and Steph's right about the way when she was talking about the players and your mindset and stuff like that. I just look at Arsenal, I just think This is the wrong time of the season to where they're choking. And I don't like to call them bottlers because everyone does and says they are bottlers. I still feel maybe Arsenal are the favourites. But I think Man City win today, and I think Man City beat Arsenal at the Etihad next week. I do. I actually think Man City are in a brilliant position. I don't know what is going on with Arsenal at the moment. Everyone can talk about injuries and stuff. They've got injuries to Saka and the likes of Odegaard and Timber. But I think Saka and Timber in particular, they've missed. Odegaard hasn't been, I think, the same player this season. And I just think they're struggling. But one thing I would say is, like, what makes me laugh is they spent such a lot of money in the summer for when they do pick up injuries and players have to come in and make up for the injured players that are not available. And they've just struggled massively. But does that go down to the manager? You know what I was going to ask Steph and Jules, and we were talking about it yesterday, is that everyone was talking about the quadruple. What happens if Arsenal don't win any trophy this season? What happens to Mikel Arteta? Because the position they were in 2-3 weeks ago, we were talking about the quadruple. Now they might, because in my opinion, there's too many good teams in the Champions League for them to go and win the Champions League. I think it will either be PSG or Bayern Munich. That's just my honest opinion at the moment.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because there's not many people ever win the quadruple. That's because it's so hard to do. It's so hard to be that consistent and have that squad. And I think if Arsenal don't come away with anything this season, there'll be a lot of questions, because in terms of what Arteta has done to this squad in terms of the last few years, I think he's got to the place where he's being, like, when you speak about a lot of money, he spent that money to build that squad, but it's like, okay, now this is your opportunity to go and bring silverware back to Arsenal. And if that doesn't happen, then there's got to be questions asked. Is it more around the manager, or is it more about the mentality of the players? Because I was going to speak to you guys in terms of the midfield, in terms of when Kai Havertz plays in that 10 role, it massively affects Declan Rice. I feel as though Declan Rice is playing so deeper than he was at the beginning of the season. He's so much more effective higher up in and around the box. And yeah, of course, he takes every set piece, but his better qualities are when he's facing the goal and he's able to make them passes, he's able to dribble with the ball. And I do feel as though that balance in midfield has probably affected Arsenal over the last few games.
Jules, just building on that point Steph made about Mikel Arteta and his future, he's got a year left on his deal after this summer. 1 year left. And you just wonder where Arsenal go. If things don't go right for them this season and they end up with no trophies, what do the Arsenal board do? Because they've built for so long with him. He's been backed and backed and backed and backed and backed. It would feel like kind of starting again.
No, I don't think so. I think they want him to continue. He wants to continue. They really believe in him. I think he's an outstanding coach, really. And I know right now it's tough. And I know we will be waiting for him to find the right answers and the right formula for the team to come out of this kind of difficult patch. Because it's true, you lose to City, you lose to Southampton, you lose to Bournemouth. You get that last-minute win against Sporting in a game that was not all too bad, but it's still a last-minute win against Sporting Club de Portugal at the end of the day. And that's also the challenge for him. There's a challenge for the players right now who will host Sporting first, then who go to City and will have to respond absolutely. There's the challenge on him, not so much for the future, because I think at the club, the ownership, the Kroenkes, the CEO there, everybody is really behind him, and the unity in that club is what has made them still right now top of the table with 9 points clear. And I know there's more, but still right now you would rather them have the points than you being being chasing, for sure. And that unity from the bottom to the top of the club is what has taken them there. And Mikel is a big part of that. One of the first things he did 6 years ago was to reconnect everything within that football club. The team with the fans, everybody within the club, and have that kind of momentum going. And it's tough, and it takes time to build that kind of momentum on and off the pitch. And now you look at where the team is and how good the states are, it's great. But yeah, you need to win. Sure, of course you need to win. And not winning anything this season would be a huge disappointment because of where the team was at for most of the season, and also the money invested, for sure.
Jules, got to interrupt there. Massive game goal in the game involving Rangers and Falkirk. Is a goal, but for who? Martin Dowden.
What drama we have here. It is a second goal for Falkirk, and what a goal it is. Rangers failed to clear when they had the chance. The ball bobbled around. It fell perfectly for Finn Yates outside the box, and he curled an absolute perler past Jack Butland. What a finish. What a scoreline. Falkirk 2, Rangers 0.